Yes,
Um,
from the beginning.
so, can you tell me a little bit about what you were like as a kid and where you grew up and what life was like?
Okay. Well, sir, I would say that in his most cases, humble beginnings. So I grew up in a small farm town, Clarks Grove, Minnesota, and I say small, meaning that there is 350 residents as the population for this town that I lived in. Now, the largest town next to us, 10 miles away, was Albert Lee, which is usually when people ask where you're from, I usually say Albert Lee because it's a larger city and people kind of know where that is on the map, so to speak. So anyway, just growing up in that environment, farm town, if you will, the closest family of color, I'll just put it that way, was probably 10 miles away, and that happened to be my cousin. So, but I will tell you, growing up, I didn't know any different. I was just another kid from Clark's Grove. Not Hispanic, not white, not Asian, not nothing. Just a kid from Clark's Grove who played baseball, got along with everybody. But I would tell you, for me, I'm the youngest of five children. And so I guess with that, there were some things that I got privileges on because, and oh, by the way, I'm the only boy.
Okay.
Uh, so with that being said, there were definitely some things that I went through, or I should say, I didn't have to go through that my sisters did because I was the youngest and I was the boy. But there were also some things. I was very active in sports, and so I remember in high school, I wanted to play on the football team. I mean, that for me, I love football. To this day, I still love football. But because my mother worked and my dad worked, uh, and remember, I lived 10 miles away from this town. Um, there was no way for me to go back and forth. And so my mother told me, hey, if this is what you want to do, you have to figure it out. And so I did. I made sure I had good tire pressure on my bike, and I rode the 10 miles to the two a days. But for me, early on, Reynolds, if I would go back and talk to him, that will serve you well because you took a problem, you took something that you wanted to do, and you figured it out in the most expeditious manner that you could based on the resources that you had available, which fast forward to now is pretty much what I do now.
Yeah. Um, you said five kids. What was the age difference between the oldest and the youngest?
Okay, so my oldest sister just turned 58.
But
So roughly about 9 years, I guess,
okay.
in there because they were kind of racked and stacked, so to speak.
Yeah. And was there a I mean, did they babysit you as you were growing up, or I
Yeah,
mean, how did that
for the
kind of
most
work
part.
with
For the most part, yeah, yes, sir. They took care of me um, up to a certain point, and then, like I said, once I hit, I'm gonna say probably around fourth grade or so. I was pretty much on my own doing
right?
my thing. But again, for me, my thing was playing sports. I'd be in the backyard or neighbor's backyard playing wiffle ball, football, basketball.
Yeah.
Hey, let's race to the oak tree. I mean, that's
Um, any other sports besides football?
wrestling. My dad and boxing. I was also a Golden Glove boxer for about 4 years. And my dad was really into the boxing and wrestling. As a matter of fact, one of my nephews, he's still in Minnesota, still goes with him to make sure that he's doing all the right techniques and so on and so forth. But yeah, like I said, for me, football was the number one sport for me.
How about like in high school? Were you good high school student? Were you
I
okay?
was I
Were
was fair to partly
kept
cloudy.
out of kept out of trouble?
For the most part, yes, and I say that because I was one of those students that didn't have to study very hard to pass an exam or a test. And so that came very easy to me as far as, hey, pop quiz on X, and okay, got it. Here you go, throw it in. My problem was that I didn't necessarily do all the homework because I didn't think I needed to because I was getting 90s and above in all these tests. So I don't understand the point of homework. And knowing now what I know now, obviously, hey, the test is only like 15% of this grade.
I hate you guys. You know, and here's me, I'm like studying away and I get half the answers right. But it is what it is.
But anyway, I did enjoy school,
Yeah.
and I liked learning. I didn't so much like reading. Still, I don't really like reading. But uh, like I said, I had good relationships with teachers, with students. I was one of those kids that kind of, how you have your cliques. You have your nerds or smart guys. You have your jocks, if you will. You have the rowdy people. I was one of those students that could really get along in any of those groups, depending on what subject or what we were doing at the time. But I could certainly interact with all of them and understand what they were talking about. And again, I think fast forward now, I think that also helps me as a leader to be able to see different sides of a conversation. I guess I would say.
Yeah. So what tipped you into the Army? Was it a recruiter that showed up at high school and said, "Hey," or was it family? Was it?
No, actually, sir, it was a friend of mine, a high school friend. Um, None of my family's been in the military. I'm the first one. Um, from my immediate family, I should say. I had an uncle that was in the Navy, but he didn't really talk about it. My cousin went into the Navy. Actually, both of his sons went into the Navy as well. But for me, a buddy of mine kept talking about being airborne, 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 and I had no idea what airborne
What
was.
the
It
heck?
sounded
What the
pretty
heck
cool.
is airborne?
Yeah, and so apparently his father, who had passed, but his father was an airborne trooper, and so anyway, that's what he wanted to do, follow footsteps, and so anyway, for me, it wasn't necessarily a recruiter. What I did is I took a look at the situation, if you will. All right, so again, remember, I came from a small town, and so opportunities in that town weren't very, very good. And what I mean by opportunities, it's not that I couldn't work. Sure, I could be a dishwasher. I could, pump gas. I can do these things. But what I wanted was a job, a profession, if you will, career, whatever you want to call it, that would allow me to raise a family better than what I could there. And so I didn't see any opportunities for that for me in the way that I wanted to raise a family in Minnesota, at least where I was in Minnesota. So the Army, as I looked into it, and I did go to the recruiter, and so we'll just say the benefits and compensation package
Yeah.
was very appealing to me as far as, hey, this is what you could do for your family.
Right.
And that's really why I went into the Army, sir.
Okay. And okay, that's awesome. Did you did you think before that though? Did you think before you went into the Army if yeah, I mean I'm looking for other things to do to go. I mean, did you write down on a piece of paper anywhere, or did you think in your head that hey, I'm gonna go here and try to do this if the Army doesn't pan out or
Yeah, yes, sir. I mean, I thought about who do I know? One of those things. This person works on this farm, which gets paid fairly decent. And it wasn't like I didn't have any jobs. I mean, like I said, I was a dishwasher. As
yeah
a matter of fact, I was a DJ for the county ice skating rink thing. So I got to play cool music and hey, couples skate, type stuff, which was fun in high school. But again, as I look forward, I was like, okay, well, what is it? Spam,
yeah
the home of spam is right there in Austin, Minnesota, which is again probably from where I lived about 30 miles maybe. So there's, those types of industry assembly plant type jobs that I'm sure I could have gotten. But at the time, again, okay, what do I do now? Is really what I was trying to get after. And again, for me, I just could not see being, the head pizza maker at Pizza Hut
Right.
for 15 years, I guess.
Yeah. All right. So skipping forward to, okay, you enlist, you show up to, I'm imagining you go to Fort Leonard Wood, or where did you
Yeah.
go to basic?
Yep. Fort Leonard Wood, one station unit training.
All right.
OSIT. It was
And so
awesome.
you get off the bus there, and the drill sergeant's yelling at you. And I mean, what was your first impression after you spent like 3 or 4 weeks at basic training?
First impression was holy crap.
What the hell did I just do?
Put my bag down. Don't put my bag down. Stand over there. Why are you standing like that? Don't look at me. Look at me. What do I do? And so it was a culture shock more than anything. And when I say culture shock, sir, I mean that legitimately it was the first time that I had seen other ethnicities other than whites, Caucasians, and Mexicans. I mean, I was like, wow, and
Yeah.
they're all really cool. So anyway, so those first couple of weeks was just integrating and inculcating me into the Army culture, but it was also an education into other cultures that I had no idea because of where I came from. Had I not left it, and there's so many that I go back when I see my parents that are still there. Had I not left that environment, that area, I probably still would never
Yeah.
know that
I'm pretty
this goes
certain.
on here.
I'm pretty certain that half of Justice family has never figured out that they could leave Iowa yet.
Yeah, absolutely,
You could actually
absolutely.
leave Iowa if you really wanted to. Yeah. No. I mean, I when I came in, I any cool stories from like your first year or two in the army, either what you ended up doing bad that taught you something, or
I
something
did
that
a ton of things
some
bad.
yeah something that you wish you didn't do, or something that you actually did, or somebody did and that you took note of it. Yeah.
Well, a few things. First of all, all I knew was training, right? So I go from basic AIT, it was all combined, and then I go straight from there to Fort Benning, Georgia, to airborne school, and I arrived there on a Friday. So I get there on a Friday, and I'm hearing them talking about, hey, sign in over here. You're gonna get barracks over there, and so on and so forth. And the Monday formation at this time, got it. So I kind of skipped that part about what happens after we get done signing in. So anyway, I go to the barracks. I get all my stuff, and make my bed and all that good stuff. I get up on Saturday, early like normal, make my bed, make sure it's the four corners, hospital corners, all that good stuff. Uh, get in my uniform, and I sit on my bed, and I'm waiting for somebody to tell me, hey, it's time for formation. Right. So, and I'm seeing people walking down the halls, right, in civilian clothing. It doesn't dawn on me yet. So finally, somewhere around 10 o'clock, 1000 that day, I remember, I can't remember his name, but he was a staff sergeant from the 101st. He walks by. He kind of does a double take. He comes back to the room, and I knew he was the staff sergeant, even though he was in civilian clothing, because I remembered him from signing in the night prior. Anyway,
Right.
he's like, "Hey, Reynolds," and I jump up, go to parade rest. Yes, sergeant. He's like, "Whoa, whoa." He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Sergeant, I'm waiting for formation." And he's like, "Reynolds, there is no formation." And I was like, "Sergeant," he's like, "You're off." And I was like, "Sergeant," he's like, "Dude, you can go to the PX, to the movie, to go get something to eat." He's like, "You can do any of those things because we don't have formation until Monday." So anyway, of course, I change out, and that was the greatest thing ever. But I didn't understand what off meant. I
Yeah.
didn't understand that the army wasn't just train, 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 because that's what I thought it was, because that's
Right.
all I've done in the army thus far. And so anyway, that's that lesson taught me there that, hey, there is more to this Army thing than just, training and
You mean I can
doing
go
missions.
home?
Yeah, exactly. What? Uh, so fast forward, I guess, really almost maybe a year or so. So anyway, I'm headed into work. By this time, I think I'm a PFC because I got the promotion to private in
Very
basic
nice.
training going to AIT. So, and oh, by the way, I didn't know I got promoted to PFC because it was in my records and no one ever told me. It was, the whole yearly thing. And
Right.
anyway, we're going through what we call SRP now, and that's when the person looking at my records looked at me and said, "Hey, you're out of uniform." And I was like, "I'm looking hard. Hey,
What the
what
heck?
is it? What is it?" And they's like, "You're a PFC. You're not a PV2. Congratulations." So anyway, so I'm a PFC going to work, and I run out of gas, and so I'm like, "Man, what do I do?" Um, so I park, obviously the car's parked. So I run to work, and when I run to work, I'm talking probably about maybe 4 miles or so. And so I get to work and let the team or my squad leader know, hey, I ran out of gas, and that's why I wasn't at formation, and so on and so forth. And he can obviously see me sweat and everything. He's like, okay. And so he's like, hey, Reynolds, just stay here for a second. It's like, okay. So I'm thinking I'm about to get the smoking of my life, and so I'm
Here
mentally
it
preparing
comes.
myself, yeah, for up, go, flutter kick, front, back, ah. So anyway, what happens is he comes back probably about 5 minutes later, and he hands me this envelope. So this envelope contains some money that he collected from the squad to help me get gas to put in the vehicle that would get me through the rest of the week to when we get to payday. So that lesson taught me again, hey, it really is more of a family than it is just a
Yeah.
job, and everybody really does care for you in their own way, of course. But I mean, that again, those are the two things that really stand out to me as far as my young private days, I guess I would say.
Yeah. So, you know, you get you're doing pretty good in the Army thing. You're figuring it out. All of a sudden, they slap some stripes on you. I mean, was that a surprise, or had you kind of figured, hey, I'm doing pretty well at this. I'm sort of figuring stuff out, and you've got you're in a team leader position or you're in a squad leader position. I mean, what was the evolution there from young private to sergeant?
From the frying pan to the fire, sir. And I say that because I was so I'm a specialist in Alpha Company 37th, and so my squad leader's grooming me, if you will. Hey, this, and it's kind of like today where we have step. So I knew I couldn't be promoted to sergeant unless I went to back then PLDC, which is now BLC. So kind of, old things become new again. So that's what
Right.
we're doing now. So anyway, so I know I have to go to PLDC. I get in on a walk-in, and so I go through everything. I come out of PLDC, and I make the points to become a sergeant. So here in my head, I'm thinking, all right, I'm gonna be a sergeant, so I'm gonna be a team leader in the same squad that I'm in the same company, in the same platoon. Nothing really changes except for my position. Boy, was I wrong, because uh, I come out, I do get promoted. I get promoted to sergeant, and I get notified that I will be moving to Bravo Company, second platoon, second squad. Um, Actually, first squad. Excuse me, first squad. I'm like, excuse
What?
me. This wasn't a part of the deal for me to become a sergeant. And so anyway, I write, I guess what we would consider either a letter or maybe even a white paper, if you will, to the battalion commander
Uh huh.
because it's his policy as to why I shouldn't be moved to Bravo Company and I should stay in Alpha Company in my position in my squad, so on and so forth. Um, and to my surprise, if you will, I get a response back from the battalion commander that first he says, Sergeant Reynolds, I appreciate you taking the time to explain to me why you believe that you should stay where you are. He said, I remember in there it said, in the future, if I need somebody to write, I think I'll ask you because this was very well thought out and articulate. However, you will be moving to Bravo Company. So I didn't have a chance to become a team leader. I went straight from being a specialist in a team to squad leader.
Okay.
And the significance of being and I'm sure you know this already, sir, but the significance of being the first squad leader is that I also got to take care of all of the headquarters equipment and vehicles, and so typically that's your seasoned squad leader position because so coming in from, hey, I'm a specialist from this company, inserted into another company, which you know how the rivals go.
Yep.
But I show up and now I'm in charge of all this stuff, and I have 8 steely-eyed sappers looking at me. Sergeant, what you want us to do? Okay, well, what do you want to do? So that transition, sir, was a little weird. I'm gonna say weird only because I wasn't ready to become a squad leader in another company, in another platoon, because I had my mindset that I was going to remain where I was, and I was going to learn everything I needed to learn from my squad leader as that team leader, which didn't actually happen that way.
Handwritten note back from the battalion commander? That was awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, and again, I just felt that strongly, and really, my message to the commander was by moving me out of this element, this squad, degrades the continuity
Right.
and the leadership that we've already established. And I think my squad leader was on orders, and so they were going to have 2 drastic changes and some other stuff that I put in there.
Right.
That basically it was better for me in the squad and the element for me to remain than it was to move me somewhere else. And he's like, "Thank you very much, but you're going."
At what point did you end up going to all the other schools? I mean, you've got the airborne under your belt, but when did you decide, or when did somebody instruct you that, hey, you need to go to these other schools too?
Well, being in the airborne community, I was always taught from PFC days that, hey, if you're going to be a leader in an airborne community, you must be a jump master. And I was okay, got it. It didn't dawn on me until now I'm a squad leader, and I'm getting my men ready for this airborne operation, and we're getting our parachutes on and all this other good stuff. And at the end of it, they had to go to somebody else, another squad leader, to get checked. And I'm like, that can't happen. These are my people. These are my soldiers. I should be inspecting them. And so that sparked me to go to jump master school. So that was the first hard school that I went to, my opinion. And honestly, I would go back to Ranger school again than jump master school.
Yeah, me too.
Very taxing, right?
And it was just so. Oh my God, I gotta get this.
It was definitely finite for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, look, you do this or people die, type stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, that sparked me to go to jump master school. Now I can rewind it a little bit. I did go to Sapper Leader course before I went to. Nope, take that back. I didn't do it. I was in Bravo Company still. So I go to jump master school, and then I become promotable to sergeant or staff sergeant relatively soon. So I go from coming in the Army at E0 to being promoted to sergeant in 2 years and roughly 7 months, something like that. So in 2 years and 7 months of me coming into this great profession that I know nothing about, I'm now a leader. And 6 months after that, I became promotable because I was able to go to the board eligible promotable to staff sergeant. So I graduate then BNOC, now ALC, and I was leadership awardee, David L. Clark Leadership Award for BNOC. Graduate on Thursday, so I get a note that my commander, then Captain Guy R. Mallow, says, "Hey, I need to see Reynolds." And I was thinking in my head again, see how I have all these wrong thoughts, sir. So I'm thinking in my head, I'm coming there that he's going to congratulate me for graduating and being
Right.
a leadership awardee. And I'm like, okay, great. So I show up into his office, he does congratulate me like I thought, and then he hands me this piece of paper, and on this piece of paper says packing list, and he's like, "Hey, we we're going to the Sapper Leader course on Monday, so you have from Friday to Sunday to get packed, and we'll see you on Monday. Congratulations." So no train up, no just Fortunately, another piece of advice that my first squad leader gave me was, "Hey, always be in good physical condition because it will serve you well in the Army, regardless of where you go. And if you stay airborne long enough, you're going to need it." That's pretty much what he told me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was in still pretty decent shape. We go to Sapper Leader course. Back then, we used to do it as a company or as a cohort unit, if you will. So me and others, squad leaders, platoon sergeants, team leaders, of course, the company commander, XO, PLs, so on and so forth. We ended up being a sapper company, so over 80% of us did actually graduate and pass. And so that was my first leadership school that I ever went to. And I say leadership because even though we went as a cohort, you still don't really know the people that you work with until you're put into an adverse situation, and you can really tell what character is coming out.
That is definitely true.
And because of Sapper Leader course, that's when I decided that I wanted to go be a Sapper Leader instructor.
Okay.
But the only way I could do that is I had to go to Ranger School.
Okay.
And so started my campaign, if you will,
right.
to get a slot to Ranger School. But in the 20th Engineer Brigade, at that time, you couldn't go to Ranger School unless you went through pre-Ranger course. And the only pre-Ranger course that we had was the 82nd pre-Ranger course.
Okay.
Well, again, thoughts again from young Sergeant Reynolds. I'll just go down there, knock out this PT test, get a slot, go through PRC, get a slot to Ranger School. Man, this is too easy. Man, what else do I need to do? So anyway, I show up down to the testing site, and it, of course, didn't dawn on me. It was all 1st Brigade, 2nd Brigade, 3rd Brigade, 82nd, headquarters or support of 82nd, all others. Well, there's only 45 slots. And again, I don't know this. I just know that, hey, I'm going down to do this test to get into this course.
Yeah.
And so by the time they get down to the all others, because I was in 18th Airborne Corps, and so all others, the slots were full, but I didn't know that. And so I'm knocking out my push-ups. And I get to, I think we needed 52 minimum.
Right.
So I get to like 50, and it's like 50, 50, 50, 50. I'm like, and I'm
what the hell?
Slowing down, trying to go underneath the ground, and coming all the way up. And there's like, hey, Ranger candidate, you failed this, event. And I'm like, what? They go to the back, 10 minutes to come back. So come back. And still get to 50, 50, 50, 50. So I fail. And then the same thing happens in the sit-ups. Run they can't do anything about. I did the run. I did the pull-ups. And they're like, hey, you failed this PT test. And so I go back to my battalion. And first stop is to the battalion command sergeant major. And I'm like, Sergeant Major, I failed the PT test. And he's like, Reynolds, get out of my office, man. Stop messing with me. I got things to do. I'm like, Sergeant Major, I'm serious. I failed the PT test. And he's like, there's no way. You're a 290 above average. I was like, Sergeant Major, I don't know what else to tell you. And so he makes a few calls. And then he's like, okay, got it. Hangs up the phone. And then he's like, hey, Reynolds, there's only 45 slots. He said, so once those slots are full, they can't accept anymore. So if they were to pass you, then you would get a slot. And so they couldn't pass anybody else after 45 slots were filled. And I was like, okay, got it. But it didn't sit well with me.
Right.
So again, I ask a question. Hey, because I've already been to sapper school, could that constitute a pre-ranger course?
Right.
Because they pretty much do some of the same things, and I think it does prepare me well
Yeah.
to do this. And of course, I get the answer of no. And I was like, okay, so I'll ask again next month. So anyway, I kept asking, and the answer was, well, we'll take a look at it, and of course now I reenlist. I'm going to Alaska, and like the literally the last month that I'm there before I sign out on leave, we get the notification, hey, if you've been to Cyber Leader course, you can go to Ranger School because it will constitute a pre-Ranger course. I was like, yeah, but hey, as long as it helps somebody else out, got it. But anyway, so I go to Alaska. I do go to Ranger School. I think the task force Geronimo, 501st up there, they hadn't sent an engineer to Ranger School from that task force in about 3 or 4 years. They told me when I asked, because they were getting a crap load of slots there. I'm like,
Hmm.
where are these slots coming from? And he's like, well, nobody really wants to go, so we just got like a DA6, and people go down, they fail the PT test, they come back, you know. And I was like, look, I won't fail the PT test. I can't tell you I'm going to pass Ranger School, but I won't fail the PT test. So they gave me a shot. I went down there. I did my thing. I came back, and a few months later, my Army brother, who just took over the MESCO, Sergeant Major Stanley.
Stanley.
Uh,
Yeah.
yep, Stanley went down there right after me, and he graduated. So we were 2 for 2, looking good. But anyway, that right there qualified me to become a Cyber Leader course instructor, and so that's exactly where I went after Alaska. Once I got to Cyber Leader course, they were the ones that really wanted me to go through all those other courses: Air Assault, Pathfinder, Mountain Warfare, Summer and Winter. They were the ones that inspired me to do that because of the things that we were teaching at the course.
Yeah.
They needed current, updated techniques. They wanted subject matter experts, if you will.
Right.
So we could build more credibility as to our abilities in our teaching methods than just, hey, this is what we teach out of the book. And that's really what happened. Now, if you talk to Sergeant Major Falanico, which you better have a lot of time on your hands to do, but if you talk to him and you mention my name,
Right.
he will say that I stole his Pathfinder slot, which is not true. Not true at all. What had happened was, then Master Sergeant Falanico, who was our chief, found out that he was on the promotion list for Sergeant Major. And so he's like, well, I've already been promoted, or I'm a promotable. Why do I need this slot? And so he was like, who's next on the list? And happened to be Reynolds. He's like, hey, tell Reynolds he's going. Another one of those sappers things, you know. Hey, tell Reynolds he's going to Pathfinder school next week.
Right. What? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, me and Stanley, because me and my brother Stanley, we went to almost every school together. So we go down to Benning and knock out Pathfinder school.
That's
And
awesome.
me and Stanley went to Mountain Warfare winter summer together. We went to ANOC together, ANOC now SLC together. And yeah, that was it. Because I went. He'd already been to Air Assault. I went to Air Assault on my own.
So did I mean, sometime during this time, did you wake up and say, I'm gonna be a command sergeant major one day. I'm gonna be the dean of the U.S. Army Sergeant Major Academy. I mean, when did that realization come, or were you just sort of, hey, the next thing?
No, I think with most leaders, sir, I don't know if we're as conscious of that as we may think, or some people may think we are. I really was just going from what do I need to do to be better at what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And if I did that well, then the next rank or whatever would take care of itself. Typically in the Army, or maybe I can just say military, but definitely in the Army, there's usually one rank that everybody stays at for a longer period of time than the other ranks.
Yeah.
For me, it really was sergeant to staff sergeant. It took me, sir, almost 6 years to become promoted. And it's all because of points. And because I was a jump master, because I was a senior rated jump master going into BNOC or ALC. And so I had a lot of duties. I wanted to get schools. I wanted to go to NBC school, and they laughed at me. It's like, nobody wants to go to that school. I was like, well, I need points, I'll go,
Right.
And they're like, I'm sorry, we got an NTC thing coming up. We need jump masters, and so I couldn't even go to NBC school. And it wasn't until Alaska, Lieutenant Molitor, my PL up there, he said, hey, Reynolds, you've been doing a fantastic job for us. I need to pull you out of your squad leader position. I was like, well, I thought you said I was doing a great job. Why are you pulling me out? He's like, whoa. He said, I need you to work for me from 06 to 11:30. He said, at 1300, you will be in a college class. And he's like, and I didn't understand. He's like, I need you to be a staff sergeant. So if this is a way for us to get you there, you're going to school. You're gonna. And sure enough, I go through school. I'm well on my way to my associate's degree at that point, so to speak. But anyway, I had enough points. And 3 months before I PCS to Fort Leonard Wood, I became a staff sergeant. And really, truly is because of Lieutenant Molitor pushing me to do what he thought was right for me.
Yeah.
Because he seen potential in me to move forward. Now, after that, sir, I can tell you secondary promotion from staff sergeant to sergeant first class. And that happened just before I left Sapper Leader Course. Secondary promotion to master sergeant. I found that out when I was downrange. Actually, Erica found that out first, and she told me, hey, Master Sergeant Stevens just called me and said congratulations. And then again, secondary to be selected to go to the Sergeant Major course.
Right.
And then right after Sergeant Major course, or actually while I was in Sergeant Major course, I got selected for promotion during that. So all those came relatively quickly. It was just that one rank that took a longer time than others. But again, going back to your original question, I don't think I ever thought that I would be a command Sergeant Major.
I had a couple of things on here. We've been talking for 40 minutes now. I've got some pretty good stories. So you use the slogan "Hoorah Kill" and "Too Dumb to Quit" and some probably some other slogans.
Yeah.
Can you explain some of these?
Okay, so let's see. "Too Dumb to Quit" would be one of my favorites. I say that because it really embodies to me the spirit of the sapper. I mean, they will do any and everything to get the mission done, and sometimes you just have to tell them stop. You've done enough. But they won't. They will continue to work the problem, continue to work solutions. They will figure out a way, even if it's they exhaust themselves. So they really are too dumb to quit, but in an affectionate way. That, hey, these are the guys that you want, because they're not going to quit on you. They're going to do everything and anything they can to get that mission accomplished. Hoorah Kill, to me, people sometimes take it literally, but when you break down kill, terminate, eliminate, finish. But if you were to finish something every day, imagine what you could accomplish in a week's time, in a month's time, in a year's time. So Hoorah Kill really just means, hey, finish something, get after it. You can say, different things. Hey, I killed it, or I nailed it, or whatever. But in some aspects, in a weird way to me, sometimes, when I say "Hoorah Kill," people just perk up and like, hey, that's motivating. I don't know why it's motivating. I have no idea. But the point of it is finish something,
right?
Whatever that is.
I remember you telling me one time, you don't have to know what you're doing, you just have to do it.
Boy,
that's always I've always carried that with me, because I always thought that was a really, that explains the Army a lot. A lot of the Army is, it's, you're assigned something, well, you better figure out a way to do it. So even if you don't know how to do it, you gotta figure it out. You gotta just drive on and pretend that you know how to do it. And,
this is happening.
You'll figure it out. That's always kept with me.
So who said that to me was a platoon sergeant of mine. We were building a timber trestle bridge, and we had a lot of standing around, so to speak. And I was trying to just get some specs or something. I was like, first I asked for the blueprints, and he's like, yeah, I got them. I was like, great, where are they? Of course, he does this and points to his head and like, I got them right here. And I was like, oh man, great. So then I come back to him and I said, hey, is there any measurements that we can have so we can pre-cut these boards and make the process go faster? And that's when he looked at me. He's like, Son Reynolds, you don't need to know what you're doing. Just do it. And I was like, oh, Roger that. I don't need it. And so anyway, it kind of was a joke, but like you said, he really described to me what I was about to get into as a platoon sergeant. In fact, as a operations sergeant,
Yeah.
then a platoon sergeant, then a first sergeant, then a sergeant major. In any one of those positions, for me particularly, I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I had to do it. I knew that I had to figure it out, like you said, sir. And sometimes it's a matter of what do we inherit from the last leader that was in that position?
Yeah.
What makes sense to us? What do we need to change? And that's a part of us, I guess, doing that evaluation of our environment first, and then getting after it.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you some questions about young privates coming up to Command Sergeant Major Reynolds and saying, "Hey, how do I get if I want that? What do I got to do?" You know.
Okay. Well, the first thing that I would tell a young soldier or trooper would be, one, you've got to be dedicated and committed to the Army mission. And I said that's a variety of ways to do that. That could be um, to your own mission as far as what does your unit do, and do that very well. It could be the communications or with stratcom, strategic communications of yeah, you really truly are an ambassador, and if you do these things well, you will progress. You know, when I do my in brief, and I got this from another commander of mine, Lieutenant Colonel Woodruff, but we call it like the nuclear triangle, and within this triangle there's smaller triangles, and in the smaller triangles there's things like APFT, height, weight, counseling, awards and things like that. So anyway, whatever you want to put in there, but the point of that is that the Army in some people's eyes it's really easy. And you just get to show up. They tell you what to wear, what you're gonna do. They're gonna tell you how to do it. It's pretty simple. But when you look at all of the things that you have to do as a soldier and as a leader, the Army actually is pretty tough, because if you maintain the standard on all of those things,
Yeah.
man, you're busy. And then of course you still have to do your job. And so to the young private, hey, you're going to have to do a lot of balancing and a lot of prioritizing for you specifically in order to get to where you want to be. And if that's in my position, then you have to do the soldier things right first. And then the leadership stuff will come, because you'll understand how that soldier is going to work,
Right.
what it is that they need to better themselves. Because when you put those stripes on, it's all about soldiers. It has nothing to do with you anymore.
What's the worst advice a leader ever gave you?
Worst advice. The worst advice I would say probably is don't worry about your records. Your reputation will take care of itself. And to a point that yes, that is true. However, you still have to follow up with updating your records and getting a DA photo, and things like that. I think if I were to kind of rewind that conversation, I think the point of it was, hey, if you're taking care of others, that's all you really need to do. But in reality is you still need to take care of you. If I don't take care of me, then how can I take care of others? Because I won't be there.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I learned from that interaction or that engagement, I guess.
How about you yourself? I mean, do you ever regret giving some bad advice to somebody?
Uh, let's
that didn't
see.
work out the way you intended it to work out? Or maybe not advice,
Uh,
but maybe you
well,
had thought, hey, let's go do this, and it didn't work out.
it didn't pan out the way I thought. Uh, well, there are several examples, I'm sure, but you know, we, no kidding, there I was in Korea, so we have this mission to set off demolitions to break away a side of this hill or this dirt mound, if you will. It was really a hill, is what it was. And they were clearing it anyway, so it's more like quarrying operations, and so I'm looking at what we had on hand. How do we do what we need to do? And in there was this method for boring the holes with in a sandy environment. You put the shape charges and you elevate them a little bit higher than the normal stand. So you have to use pickets, tape them up, so on and so forth. And I was like, okay, and I've done it before, and so I'm like, hey, this is gonna work out great. So line these up here, this, that, and the other, and then we blew them, not so much. So we had to get in there with the augers and all kinds of stuff to dig the holes deeper. Well, during that process, the battalion commander comes out, just check on this, because this is one of those big things, never done this much explosive at one time before type stuff. And like, okay, Reynolds, what are you doing? And mind you, I'm a platoon sergeant at the time. I mean,
Right.
operations sergeant at the time. I wasn't even a platoon sergeant. And so anyway, because I was a SAP leader, course instructor, blah, 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 I say, yeah, Reynolds will do this. So I'm explaining to him, hey, this is what we did. Didn't really work out, so we're trying this. And then he's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. So he kind of takes over the operation.
Yeah.
And his question to me was, how do explosive detonate? I was like, depends on what casing it is, sir. He's like, no. The answer is all over 360 degrees. So it doesn't matter how you put it in there. So he wanted us just to bury the cratering charges in because they would blow in 360 degrees, which in a way that's true, but it's not what it's designed for. And I was trying to explain it to him, but he's like,
Right.
no, this is what you do. So anyway, we dig, we're digging trenches and putting these things in and burying them. Needless to say, terrible operation, didn't work out. Barely put a dent in the hill, and so they ended up having to come back with the excavators anyway. But
That's
yeah,
all.
that was probably 3 hours worth of work, man hours worth of work that I wish I could get back. I kind of taught that same lesson to my squad leaders downrange in OAF1. We had an artillery piece that we had to get rid of in White Falcon sector, and so I was like, hey, look, we got good security, so hey, first squad, you're gonna go first. How you gonna do this? And so these geniuses are gonna put charges on the barrel, which we know is the hardest casings. And so I let them do it, right? So Lambus gets up there and he puts on like a diamond charge and whatnot, and it makes a dent, And he's like, and I was like, oh, you're out. Okay, hey.
Next.
Barney. All right, so Farnsworth comes in, he's doing measurements and this, that, and another, and I think he puts on a saddle charge, and boom, nothing. All right. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. Maybe a little bit more of a dent. All right. And so Rosales comes in and he's like, we got this, and he doing all these measurements. And him and Frazier actually were there. And so they're putting it all in the same spot, and it's definitely weakening. It's cracking the barrel, but it's not shearing it off like they think. I think he put on like a ribbon charge or something on there.
Right.
Didn't work. And I was like, okay, so what did we learn from this? And they're like, well, don't blow the barrel. I was like, exactly. I said, because it's too hard. I was like, now I'm going to do this real quick. So we do a couple of ribbon charges on the leg landings and feet, blow those so it topples over. And I said, all right, I pulled the breech pin out. I was like, this is now ineffective.
Yep.
Let's go back to the camp.
Yeah. All right. I guess we've been talking 55 minutes. So just a couple questions leading, like generational gaps, that's been in the news, like all these millennials, they're changing. How do we relate to them? I mean, from your perspective, what's the key? Is there so much of a change, or what do we need to do as leaders to to connect with, to make sure that we're connecting with the different generations?
Well, I'll tell you, sir, that typically it's an easy answer for me. It's just engagement. Just talk with them. Like, what's important to them, even though they may have grown up a little differently, maybe more technologically savvier than we are. That's okay. But at the end of the day, it's the Army values that we all can agree upon, regardless of how that works out and what I believe. I believe in the Army values, and I know the soldiers coming in, they also know that. So if we can find that common ground, that's a start. But it starts with engagement. Now, as far as technology goes, we can't be afraid of it. We got to be able to utilize it. How do you reach the majority of your formation, depending on how large it is? Can you actually talk to everybody? And if you can't, then technology is really what's going to help you. So you can't be afraid of technology. You have to understand how it works. And in some cases, just like the slogan used to go, hey, there's an app for that.
Yeah.
Well,
Google it.
our soldiers, exactly, Google it. But our soldiers, for the most part, that they will forget their ACH and they'll forget their IVA and their SAPI plates, but they won't forget that phone. They will not forget that phone. And so if there was a way to and then there is, but if there's a way for the battalion or the division to put out their standards book in an app, those soldiers would never be without it. They would always have it right there on them. And that's why I say we can't be afraid of technology. We can utilize it to our advantages. We can utilize it for us to understand how they learn, because they learn a lot different than what we do. And in the Sergeant Major course, that's exactly what we're trying to get after. We're moving more to the experiential learning and adult model than we are just instruction. Hey, here's the slide. Let me read it to you. Let me stomp my foot or jingle my keys that you might need to understand and remember this.
Mm-hmm.
To hey, let's really get into how they learn. And so Blackboard is the way for us to go. And hopefully in the near future, and not hopefully, it will happen, but we'll have more blended learning. We'll have that video that they can watch, because they'll understand more than reading the FMTM or whatever it is that we're asking them to read.
Right. Okay.
One last thing, sir, if I could give advice to any leader, enlisted leader, um, take a look at your Raiders support form. I say that because if you don't understand what their vision is of how they're going to lead an organization or what they want to accomplish, then how do you help them accomplish that? Because if you do that and you make that leader successful, then the organization's successful, and guess what? That means you're successful.
Yeah.
So I wish I would have done that earlier. I do that now. But that would be one piece of advice that I would give to enlisted leaders is, hey, take a look at what that support form says, and that should give you a roadmap as to what your leader wants and what they expect, and you can go from there.
What I think is going to happen, it's
right.
Yeah, write it more from the heart and write it more from basically what you see. And I think that I've had a lot of leaders in the past that haven't done that, and so you're kind of scratching your head like, well, I think he means this. Okay, yeah. But yeah, that's good advice.
Right, but and again, sir, really, it just is to start conversation, because as a commander, doing a counseling on a sergeant major, which kind of is weird at times, I'm sure. Hey, you got this cat here that has 20 plus years of experience. How do I counsel them? Then it's, hey, look, here's what I want to do. Let's talk about how we get
it's
there.
Talking. It's really, yep, dialogue.
Absolutely.